Welcome back to Inside Politics. Our guests today are Wade Mundy, who's the state Democratic Party treasurer, and we also have Bill Phillips, a Republican analyst. We're talking, of course, about the 2016 presidential race. Gentlemen, there's several national media outlets, NBC, the Washington Post, Real Clear Politics, Nate Silver's 538 website, all say at this point Hillary Clinton already has enough supports in states that are safely in her column that she has at least 270 electoral votes, which is what it takes to win, and she could be headed towards an electoral landslide of maybe as much as 350 electoral votes by November. Bill, but this race doesn't feel like a landslide election coming to me. Does it to you?
No. I think it's going to probably open up in the last week or so, and it'll probably be Hillary. When I look at the path now, she's well above 270 and pretty comfortable at that. But the feeling of voters is it goes back to they're not happy with either choice.
Now, Wade, the Trump campaign says the polls are rigged, and they usually think anything that they're not leading in is not good for them. But even Larry Sabato from over at the University of Virginia, who's hardly a part of the mainstream media, but has been looking at these presidential races for a long time, he has Hillary Clinton over 270 and says she's also potentially heading towards that. So is this just this pushback by Trump, is this just a Hail Mary or just throwing enough stuff out there to see if they can come up with something to give them a chance to get back in the race?
Yeah, it's the sound of a desperate candidate who knows he's going to lose, and I think that Hillary Clinton has a much more robust ground game even, where the polls will be reinforced by people on the ground getting people to the polls.
But all this talk about landslides and stuff, the Clinton campaign will always be relying on young voters and African-American voters to a large degree. Those are not groups that always show up and vote. Sometimes they're not even registered. Is overconfidence one of your potential problems to deal with over these last 10 weeks?
Yeah, and I think probably within the Clinton campaign what they're saying right now is play like you're behind by 10 points. And they'll keep doing that.
Well, Bill, you've been in some campaigns that were, you worked for George Herbert Walker Bush, and he blew out some big leads over Dukakis in '88. Did you have to deal with complacency, or oh, don't worry, we've got this? He went in that tank. We're going to beat him easily now.
James Baker was the chairman of the campaign, and we knew that we'd better be 10 points behind mentally all the way. We felt very confident the last week, but we still worked like it was 10 points down, is a good way of putting it.
The next big events coming up on the campaign trail will be towards the end of September. We'll have the first of 3 nationally televised debates. Do you both expect both candidates to be there? Trump has raised some issues about the timing of the debates, being up against NFL games. Not quite sure what that was all about, but Wade, do you expect him to show up?
I certainly hope so. I don't think that he can back out at this point. I think most voters are really anxious and anticipating this debate.
He's behind. Doesn't he have to debate, Bill?
Yes, and as far as being up against a football game, that has happened a number of times before, and it hasn't impacted either football or the debates.
As we go forward, I've heard some analysis of this campaign overall to say it really comes down to, by Election Day, who is this a referendum on? Is it a referendum on Donald Trump? Is it a referendum on Hillary Clinton? So this race is still enough, depending on what that is, that it could change. Do you think that's right, or you think it's good? I think you said you thought it was going to break towards Clinton, and that was kind of where it was going to go.
I think it'll break towards Clinton because she's better known. She has a record, even though there's a lot of doubt about her. But I think the referendum is on the past process and what are we going to do to be more responsive to the individual voters.
Let's talk a little bit about the parties going forward after this is over. What kind of Republican Party is there going to be, Bill? You've been a member of that party for a long time. I assume you still consider yourself a Republican, but if you're a Republican, then what is Donald Trump and the party that he's leading in this presidential race?
Donald Trump is a developer who thought he might like to be in politics. The party is going to go through upheaval. There's going to be a lot of change.
I think two parties when we get through?
I think there will be 2 parties when we get through here, but I do
2 parties that are splitting out of the Republican Party, the Donald Trump Party, or the...
Not yet.
Do you think the Republicans can come back together after all of this?
Not yet, and if you look, we've had a lot of different parties in our history, and we're probably approaching that we're going to have some new elements, and it's going to come out of both parties.
Are you concerned, Wade, that Donald Trump also keeps talking about the election itself being rigged, wanting his people to go out and sort of make themselves election monitors? The only way Hillary Clinton can win in states like Is he setting up something to maybe cause some problems even after the election's over?
Yeah, he's fomented conspiracy theories and pushed those throughout his entire public life, at least in recent memory. And so I am a little bit concerned that going forward, people won't accept these election results.
So what do the Democrats do? They had a candidate, one of their major candidates, Bernie Sanders, saying that their process was rigged. How do you going to convince the voters that the Republicans have this problem? How are the Democrats going to deal with it?
Well, it's the same problem that I think Donald Trump supporters are going to have once that candidate loses, is that they really do need to organize and push forward their agenda, like Bernie Sanders' group now, which is experiencing some turmoil, is attempting to do, is organize and push their progressive agenda.
So what happens going forward? There's all this anger that's been talked about throughout the entire campaign that's out there among the electorate. I have a feeling no matter who wins, that anger is still going to be out there. There's certainly going to be, based on the polling, unhappiness with either candidate because they're going to carry some pretty negative numbers in there with them. So as political people and as people in your party, how does the party deal with that? How do you start making your systems, and for that matter, the government, work to do something to deal with this anger? Is there a way to do it?
Yeah, I think you always need to listen to the vocal minority that feels like they've been shut out of the process, and so hopefully a President Clinton or I hate to say it, a President Trump would listen to that vocal minority on either side.
Bill Phillips, thanks for coming in today.
Thank
Wade,
you.
Good to
Enjoyed
have you.
it.
Thank you.
And we'll see what happens, and probably have you back in here before we get to November.
Terrific.
And thank you for joining us this week on Inside Politics. Hope you'll be back here again for a future show. If you can't get enough politics in the meantime, go to the News Channel 5 website. You'll find my Capitol View commentary there. There's a new commentary posted every Friday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you back here next time. Goodbye.